How will Donald Trump's election win change the music industry? It's that regulatory protections may be loosened. Almost $3 billion being taken from creators and artists, basically by AI companies. Well, if this is gonna F up content promotion, this is already a problem. So far, it's not looking super great, but let's see where else this goes. For all of us creators and entrepreneurs in the music business, we're curious, how will Donald Trump's election win change the music industry? Now, Forbes is arguing that it could completely change the music industry. And what Forbes focuses on is that Trump's stance on AI policy could really be the thing that reshapes copyright and licensing. Now, as an entertainment and music attorney with over 10 years of experience, I've been doing music myself since I was 4. As a classical musician, all the stuff. I'm very invested in not just, what I do with music, but it's the whole point of this channel. We do music business education. So let's dive into what Forbes is saying. Okay, so this is from today, again, Forbes magazine. And so they're saying that, they think Trump's approach for tech innovation is going to be the thing that creates these risks as well as opportunities in the music industry. So let's see why they're saying this. The interest in, AI policy exploded since Trump left the White House, right? So since he left, the Biden administration issued a series of major reports, agency memos, and extensive executive orders. And these are referred to as the AI Bill of Rights. And so it's funny, I went down the rabbit hole. Let me show you where I landed on this. So I landed on the White House website and I go, this blueprint for AI Bill of Rights. What is this? So this is on whitehouse.gov, blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights. And so basically there's a framework that the White House puts on its website, and there are 5 things. And they give cute little emojis here. They go, when it comes to AI, we're looking at 1, the safety and effectiveness of the systems themselves. Okay. And then they go on to define that. They go, you should be protected from unsafe and ineffective systems, right? So we want diverse communities, stakeholders, domains to identify risks, potential impacts. Okay. And then there's this thing, algorithmic discrimination protections. And we'll talk about this in a sec. Data privacy. I've talked about this and just being like, I don't know. One of the concerns that I have when it comes to AI sourcing, how we train it, right? Where the information comes from, but also what information you guys are putting into AI. Where's that information going? And if you're using things like names or an address or whatever, something that's private, what happens with that information? So data privacy is one of the framework pieces, notice, an explanation, and then human alternatives, consideration, and fallback. Okay, so how does this then play into what we're talking about with the Trump administration? So this order focuses on privacy, ethical use, algorithmic fairness. These policies view AI with caution, right? So they go, there's potential harms that are going to happen. And so, we go, well, with these potential harms that we've spoken of, we talked about all these lawsuits. Everyone is suing everybody right now, but particularly we have major record labels suing, for example, AI music platforms, Suno, Udio, and going like, you stole our music. Now, as of right now, we're not saying that you're sampling. We're not saying that you downloaded copies and you are using copies on your AI platforms. We're saying you used it to train your AI. You did it, without authorization. It's copyright infringement. So this goes to the ethical sourcing conversation. But Forbes goes on. These policies view AI with caution, highlighting potential harms and benefits, unsafe, ineffective, or biased, or whether something is deeply harmful. And then it goes on to just talk about how there's 750 federal and state bills that were introduced in response to AI and how, rapidly that it's expanding. And so they go, some states like Colorado, they've enacted a comprehensive AI regulations to address fairness and safety, while California proposed major AI regulations focused on existential risk, envisioning AI as a potential catastrophic threat. Okay, so how does this all, relate to the Trump administration? Also, although vetoed by Governor Newsom in September, other AI-related bills in various states address concerns about online safety, elections, copyright, and deep fakes. This regulatory momentum largely focused on perceived AI risks. Okay, well, and look, let me just throw this out there. As copyright attorney, as an entertainment attorney, I've had situations come up where we have creators who are utilizing AI and, for example, they go, well, I can't hire Britney Spears, so I'm going to create and use AI to create a vocal that mimics Britney Spears. Is there anything wrong with that? And I can tell you some of the things that come to mind for me are rights of publicity. If we are trying to literally mimic someone else, is that problematic for any reason? And the answer is yes. And in fact, I have a call with 2 major labels on Tuesday of this week because they came back and literally gave me this argument. They're like, you know what? You think that we sampled? We didn't. Actually, what our artists did is they recreated the song and basically just made it sound like your clients, which is there's so many issues with that. Don't get me started. But anyway, so you can see as we're now utilizing AI is really amazing, but there are risks. And certain states are just going wild on it. And they're like, we think it's going to have, as they call it, catastrophic, or it is a catastrophic threat. All right, so expanding fair use for AI data training. The Forbes article goes on. One of the most immediate potential shifts under Trump's administration is the dismantling of the AI bill. So basically this framework that was put into place, and Trump suggesting taking immediately upon returning to office that the current licensing measures that protect copyright in the use of training AI, maybe that's going to be repealed. So the repeal of this framework could ease licensing requirements for AI developers, allowing them to train models on music data without compensating artists. So guys, I mean, look, right now, drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts because this is the big question. We don't know how the courts are going to rule on these cases, but across the board, it's not just music, right? We have stock image platforms who are suing AI companies because they go, you used all of our pictures to now generate all your derivative works, right? All the new things. You didn't pay us for that. And so it's the same thing with the music, right? Music platforms, you used our popular songs, and now your platforms can go ahead and just spit out new songs that mimic ours, and you didn't pay us for that. We can't necessarily stop you, right, from doing that thing that's going to ultimately dilute music, right? And so that's what their concern is. They're like, long-term impacts on this are devastating, all this good stuff. But what they're saying is that, well, even if this is going to happen, you should have paid us. So then the conversation becomes, well, it's not a big deal. Basically, what the Forbes magazine is talking about is just being like, well, maybe the Trump administration is going to come in and allow this under fair use and say this is fair use. And so if it's okay for tech companies to use whatever they want, it's copyrighted content. No one's arguing that. It's music that belongs to the record labels, but fair use, and it's under section 107, right? So 17 USC 107 of the Copyright Act. And there's 4 factors. And like, look, if you satisfy these factors and it does qualify as fair use, it's a legal way to illegally use someone's music. Does that make sense? So it's a sword. It's a way to defend and being like, yeah, you're right. I did use your music to train my AI, but so what? I'm allowed to do it. So the reason why this is a big deal with these cases is because there have not been any courts that have come back and made this determination that this is fair use. But they go, well, maybe the solution is going to come from the Trump administration by being like, no, we want to just ease the requirements for AI developers. This poses a significant challenge for the music industry, which depends on licensing fees and copyright protection for revenue. With minimal oversight, the industry could face a wave of unlicensed music replication, resulting in lost royalties for artists and labels. Okay, let's just be honest about this. I mean, yes, we kind of talked about this initially in regards to like sync licensing. One of the challenges is going to be, well, if there's a company that can just generate tracks on AI music platforms rather than going through the headache of clearing music, right? And there's so many steps for the composition side and the master side, and then they have to pay everybody, and all kinds of things come up. And so we go, well, that means people are going to lose their jobs. That means there's going to be less proper licensing of real artist music. Okay, and we go, that is happening. Our perception on it, and if we think it's really bad or whatever, different conversation, but that is happening. The Forbes article is going on just to say that there's going to be less licensing, and that's bad for artists and labels who are trying to license their music. Joint study between, and I believe it's pronounced, I looked this up, SACM, it could be SACM, but SACM and GEMA. I saw GEMA as well. So in any case, these are the performance rights organizations for France as well as Germany. They predict that the global market for generative AI in music will exceed $3 billion by 2028. Okay, so just meaning that like the market itself is going to just explode. We see that happening right now, right? For all things AI music. And according to the report, 27% of authors and creators' revenue is at risk. So they go, the reason why we care about this so much It's because we're anticipating $2.9 billion is going to be lost for our members, right? So as performance rights organizations, like in the United States, there's BMI, there's ASCAP, and so each country has a different organization. That organization is in charge of collecting your public performance royalties and paying you. So they basically came together and they say that this is like the world's first study on the impact of generative AI on the music and creative sector. And so they're going like, just based on our numbers, we're talking about our members in our countries, and that's it. And we basically surveyed over 15,000 creators, and this is how we came to these numbers. So they go by 2028, almost $3 billion being taken from creators and artists and rights holders, basically by AI companies. They just go, we're worried about this. All right, so as AI rapidly advances, music replicated or inspired by original compositions could directly compete with traditional music, eroding demand and revenue for human-created works. So artists, creators are going to get the bad end of the stick. And then there was another article, and I thought I would share this because I thought it was interesting. So GEMA, however you say it. So there was a lawsuit that they filed. They filed it specifically against OpenAI. So OpenAI owns ChatGPT. I call it Chatty. Most of you use Chatty in like your day-to-day life these days. But they were suing, and they go, you, in the same kind of way, mimicking. So you took the lyrics that our German authors created, and now you're spitting out new stuff, and you didn't pay us. So it's the same argument. We also saw Universal sued, Anthropic. So Claude is the similar thing to like ChatGPT. Claude is spitting out copyrighted derivative works. So this is a very common theme, and that's why this is such a big deal. And it's that, with the Trump administration, with, even the courts, if it becomes precedent that it's fair use for tech companies to just use whatever they want. That means, of course, a big financial loss, but part of the analysis here, and financial loss specifically for the human creators, but the long-term effects. We're really, we're worried about eroding human creativity and like, how can you compete? Essentially. The Forbes article goes on and they're just speculating about all the different ways to think about, the Trump administration, what's potentially going to happen for musicians and creators. So far it's not looking super great, but let's see where else this goes. So a report from the Copyright Alliance highlights the potential risks. AI models trained on copyrighted data can generate new derivative content that competes with the original works, diluting artists' income and control. Okay, right? So same kind of thing. Goldman Sachs projects the AI-driven music market could reach 12 billion by 2030. This is what the Forbes article doesn't say, but I went in and I read this from Copyright Alliance. So context. Copyright Alliance, it provides representation for like all creatives, right? So like photographers and filmmakers and songwriters, right? So all of us record label owners. What they kind of talked about is they go, well, on the policy making, they're like, we really want the policy to be that we want to preserve copyright. They're like, copyright's been around for a really long time. And the whole idea is to promote science, to promote creativity, but to protect copyright owners. And it's not forever, right? You only get copyright for so long. But they go on, they're like, look, we just want to make sure that copyright's being protected, that licensing can still continue, and that's not going to essentially just be like lost here with what is happening. But they go, the tech companies should not be prioritized. They go, that's the problem here. Tech companies should not be prioritized over creators. And to be like, well, no, we want to give less, requirements and restrictions and this and that because we want them to have these AI advancements and it's going to be better for everybody. But in the meantime, the creators' rights are going to get crushed. And they go, that's not cool. And they go also under section 106, so 17 USC 106. This is what talks about the right to reproduce. So you as a copyright owner, if you've made something, you own that thing under copyright automatically. Hopefully you go and you get a formal copyright registration through the Copyright Office. One of the rights that you have that no one else can take away from you is the right to reproduce your song. So meaning you put your song out on a music platform, Spotify, someone takes it and they upload it to their own account, their own distributor, like they have violated your copyright by reproducing your song. And so they go, again, like in creating derivative works, so meaning you make something new from someone else's song. And that's what they're saying AI is doing. They go, we're not saying the AI is taking the thing and making the exact same thing. They're saying it's taking the thing and mimicking it to make something just wonderful and just like this. So they go, that's a derivative work. And I can tell you as a copyright attorney, if someone does come and mimic intentionally someone else's copyrighted song, you get a license. So that is how it happens. And that's why this argument is here. They go on to essentially talk about this is weakening, copyright. This isn't fair use. This isn't transformative. And they go like, under the fair use factors. Yes, it may transform the song, but the damage is just too much. And that's a big factor in the fair use analysis, right? Which is what's the impact on the market? If we're going to use all of Metallica's catalog and be able to generate rock songs that sound exactly like Metallica, is it going to devalue that catalog? They're going to argue yes. So another way to think about this is interpolation. On Beyonce's not last album, so it was 2 albums ago, on her album, she interpolated Milkshake. Do you guys remember that song? Kelis, Pharrell, big song. And she didn't use any part of the song, right? She didn't sample anything, but she used phrasing and something that was specifically inspired from that song. So she got a license. So it's like we have literally the way that the music business is run. And so that if you are going to take inspiration from someone else's music because it was a hit and now you want to use that same kind of thing in your song, you pay for it. But now you have these big AI companies and just tech giants in general coming in and they go, well, we're going to change that. It's fair use. And so it just really, like, for me, again, as a copyright attorney that does music specifically, I'm like, you're telling me that all this like kind of doesn't matter. All right, so AI driven market could reach 12 billion by 2030. So they're going to be making their dollars and cents. So what are the implications for copyright licensing, the value of original music? The music industry's traditional revenue model relies heavily on licensing and royalties, both of which are under threat if copyright protection is weakened. AI-generated music, which can be produced at a fraction of the cost of traditional recordings, poses a particular challenge. Without licensing requirements for training data, AI companies can create music that mimics the qualities of the original compositions without compensating the artist. Industry data shows that music royalties from licensing generates over $9 billion annually. So a deregulatory stance, right? So going back to the Trump administration and the speculation here, a deregulatory stance that diminishes these revenue streams could have long-term effects on artists and the industry, both of which rely on royalties for sustainable careers. This shift could undermine the value of original music. AI-generated compositions will become more common. Demand for licensing goes down. Okay, we get it. All right, so US deregulation versus the European Union's AI directive. So this was an interesting comparison. They go, well, while Trump's administration may push the US towards deregulation, right? So meaning we want to just have less requirements on these tech companies, and maybe it should be, deemed fair use, right? So stop suing everyone. So unlike that, they're like the European Union is adopting a different approach. So European Union is focusing on protecting copyright by requiring AI companies to license any copyrighted content used in training. This approach ensures that creators are compensated fairly, aligns with the global intellectual property standards. And, we've seen that for different countries where they're just way more hardcore about this. So for the European Union, it's being like, no, like we're not against technological advancements. AI is cool. We're into it. But what we do want to ensure is that there is proper licensing for what you are using to train your AI. So Trump also consistently prioritized reducing American reliance on China, viewing AI as a strategic advantage in a political, quote, AI Cold War. Trump's AI policy likely focuses on strengthening America's technological independence, aiming to counterbalance China's advancements. This geopolitical approach could discourage the US from aligning with international agreements on AI regulation, such as those led by the EU. For American artists, this might mean fewer standards against unlicensed AI use of their work, challenging their ability to protect revenue from international markets. Now, what I can say is that we have a lot of major record labels speaking for us to a degree, right? Because they're the ones filing these lawsuits and taking these positions because they're trying to protect mainly their own catalogs, mainly their own revenue streams. All right, let's be honest about that. But the majority of the music business is made up by us, independent artists. And so for those of you watching this video, I'm curious for your thoughts on this, right? Are you concerned for everything that we've just covered? And we're going to get into the other aspects of specifically, well, we'll get into more of the Trump administration's potential effect on this, but is this going to make it so that these safeguards for licensing, when you guys are just trying to figure out how to get your stuff licensed in the first place, to figure out how to monetize your music in the first place. I guess, what are we saying here? Are we saying that at any point, a company could come and just use your stuff to train its AI and then it's now going to spit out stuff technically based on yours. You're not getting paid for that. That's part of the analysis here. Aligning energy policy with AI growth. Trump's AI policy is also expected to align with his energy agenda, which emphasizes, quote, abundant, low-cost energy, end quote. AI models require substantial energy resources, especially as they scale. To support AI development, Trump stated that he will seek to relax environmental restrictions to make energy-intensive AI operations viable domestically. While not directly tied to copyright, these changes could accelerate generative AI growth and potentially flooding the market with AI-created content. Now, look, I dig our planet. You know what I'm saying? So on the energy thing, I'm like, well, let's see. Why are we concerned about the energy? I'm like, oh, I've heard this from AI developers. And they go, well, first and foremost, there's very large data sets being used in order to train AI. And so they're like, if you are trying to train AI to make a picture of a cat, you have to give it thousands and thousands of pictures of a cat. So it is ingesting videos and pictures like in very large data sets. So they're, that's number one. Number two has to do with graphics processing units. So I guess these are like chips, and these are really powerful computer chips that have to be used, and these consume a ton of energy. And they go, also, these computers are usually for like these AI companies, there's usually like thousands of computers. I haven't seen this before, but they're like, there's a whole lot, and they're constantly running. So like quite literally, this is taking a ton of energy for this specific type of, AI system. Besides that, they're like, we also need like cooling systems because the computers get really hot. And so they go, basically, it's just ongoing energy dump. So I think that's what they're saying. It's draining the old grid. All right, so what else? The potential for the woke AI pushback. I was like, what is this? So the GOP has increasingly voiced concern about what it terms woke AI, or AI systems perceived as biased or censorious. Trump's administration may push back on algorithmic bias regulations, which is characterized as woke and politically motivated. So I go back to, we were just looking at the White House of what the current framework is. And I go, so I think this is what they're talking about. Prior to the Trump administration, this is what's currently on the website. So basically, discrimination protections. You should not face discrimination by algorithms and systems, should be used and designed in an equitable way. Algorithm discrimination occurs when automated systems contribute to unjustified different treatment or impacts disfavoring people based on their race, color, ethnicity, sex, including pregnancy, childbirth, or related medical conditions, gender identities, intersex status, and sexual orientation. So they go on. And so what the Forbes article is claiming is that the Trump administration would be like, well, this is, and what did they say? Woke AI. All right. So for the music industry, this could impact streaming platforms that use algorithms to promote music, potentially skewing recommendations and limiting visibility for certain artists. An unregulated approach to algorithmic content promotion may complicate fair representation on digital platforms. Taking out the kind of woke AI thing, I go, well, if this is going to kind of like F up content promotion, this is already a problem. I don't know about the rest of you guys. When I post something on Instagram, I think about 1% of my audience sees it, right? Maybe. Part of the issue that we have in promoting our music is that even to our existing fan bases, they won't see it. They won't necessarily see it on our music platforms, right? They don't see it on Spotify. And so there are things that we have to do anyway to self-help, such as cultivating an email list, making sure that 200 people, 2,000 people, whoever is on your email list that wants to get your music, that you have control of your audience. Will there be an impact beyond kind of this woke AI thing? I'm curious about that because, it's just been an ongoing frustration for all of us. And I'm curious, will that change? Maybe is there a way that it could change for the better, right? If you are someone that is needing help in the music business, at the end of this video, you can check out topmusicattorney.com. I have courses, I have free stuff just to kind of get you started. If you do want to deep dive, if you do want to train with me, I always say go through my music business program, which is how to think like a record label, become a record label. And then if you do want to get into touch with me or one of my lawyers, we got you covered. All right, so the alliance between Trump, JD Vance, and tech billionaires. All right. President Trump's vice president, JD Vance, is a strong opponent of AI regulation with strong backing. Peter Thiel, a longtime GOP donor and Silicon Valley billionaire. Trump's close ties with Elon Musk and support from influential tech leaders like Bill, Mark further highlights his administration's likely focus on scaling back government oversight. Okay, why is that? They're making quite the statement here. They're like, well, the VP is very strong AI, and also he's friends with all these people. And so what are you saying, that they're going to influence him? Now appointed as head of the Department of Government Efficiency under the Trump administration, Musk has openly resisted traditional licensing for AI and media content. After acquiring Twitter, which is now X, in 2022, he opted not to pursue music licensing agreements, leading to a 2023 lawsuit by the National Music Publishers Association. The suit involved about 1,700 songs and alleges that X profited from unlicensed music. Okay, let's talk. Could Elon Musk influence the administration to encourage a policy to prioritize tech growth over copyright enforcement? And this is where it's just so tough when we have, on one hand, like all social media profiles, right, that mean anything. And you have, let's say, Meta. And Meta owns Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp. And then we look at X. And then we look at TikTok. And we go, okay, well, obviously we would think that the owners of these platforms would be very vested in not having to get sued by major record labels, because equally, I just did a video just kind of, calling out major record labels because they are suing music distributors, right? So recently they filed a lawsuit against TuneCore, and they're like, well, you have people on your platform who are distributing copyright infringing music, and therefore we think you're in cahoots with them. We want statutory damages, and it's kind of BS. And we also have major labels suing other types of businesses, right? Again, because they can seek statutory damages if it's a gotcha kind of thing. I've taken both sides on this, on just being like, we see what major record labels are doing to almost weaponize the Copyright Act. And on the other side of this, we go, well, companies that have a whole lot of money and you're very incentivized to want to make copyright go away or to weaken copyright because it helps you out, right? So I guess what the Forbes article is saying, they're like, well, if Musk is in, Trump's here. He's like, well, ultimately this is going to be beneficial to me because if this is fair use, that we use the music and we train our AI and all these things, then it makes my life easier and I make more money, right? So, well, is that a good thing? Do we want to help the billionaires? What do you guys think? Okay, so his influence could potentially not be a good thing. Among his other supporters, so Trump supporters in the tech titan ranks, there's Bill Ackman, a significant investor in Universal, who holds 10.25% stake, making him the second largest shareholder in Universal. Though aligned with Trump's deregulatory agenda, Ackman's financial interest in the music industry suggests that he may push for selective protections, supporting traditional copyright enforcement for music rights while advocating for more flexibility. Yeah, I mean, obviously, because if he's one of the biggest shareholders in Universal, it's better for him that copyright is respected and you need to pay a license if you are a big multi-million-dollar or billion-dollar corporation building your new big thing based on someone else's music or copyrighted content, right? So that would make sense. Okay, who else? Mark Anderson, through his venture capital firm, Anderson Horowitz, promotes AI expansion with minimal regulatory oversight. His support for Trump reflects his desire for an AI-friendly environment that minimizes copyright restrictions. As Anderson has argued, that stringent copyright protection hinders AI growth. Well, of course it does. I mean, we had, what was it? I think it was Suno. One of Suno's investors had done, an interview, probably not really knowing the weight of what he was saying at the time. Before Suno and Udio, right, music AI platforms, they got their pants sued off, right, by the major record labels seeking hundreds of millions of dollars in copyright statutory damages. They fire back with their answers, right? And they go, you know what? You caught us, right? Because they had clammed up before then. And they're like, we're not going to tell you, how we trained our AI and we did the right thing here and whatever. But anyway, so they fire back and they're like, yeah, no, actually, we did, but it's fair use. Like, we didn't do anything wrong. One of the investors had basically done an interview and been like, I hope our company used popular song. I want to see some returns on my investment. So he's like, yeah, I mean, in order to do this properly, we would need to go and scrub through Spotify and just take everyone else's music, train our AI, and then hopefully the AI now spits out incredible songs. And in fact, it did. All right, so a period of transformation for the music industry. Trump's re-election signals a period of substantial transformation for the music industry as it contends with shifting norms around AI, licensing, and copyright. The alignment between Trump's administration and influential tech figures suggests that regulatory protections may be loosened, creating a challenging environment for artists and right holders. To adapt, the music industry may need to explore creative strategies, such as forming coalitions with tech companies, pushing for alternative licensing models, or developing unique AI proof experiences to sustain revenue. Okay. Back to remember they're like, well, and what was it, 750? So they basically said, there was a ton of legislation put forth by the states because across the nation, there had been a ton of concern about AI. And so one of the pieces of legislation that we looked at had to do with basically putting metadata in the AI. And we go, well, this is interesting. It's, kind of scary, but they go, we want to just make sure that if someone is representing something to the public, a video, a picture, a song, that we just want to make sure that the public has an opportunity to know where it came from. And so they go, we really want to put metadata into AI as like a law. And that's not the case across the board, but that was basically what the proposal was. And they just go, because this is going to get out of hand for all these reasons. And we're talking about, well, with the Trump administration, right, there's transformations taking place. Really, what the article's position is, there's going to be deregulation. We're going to loosen the restrictions really on these big corporations. So we're just making it easier for the billionaires to make more billions on our backs. And isn't that kind of like the argument in general for artists of any stage, independent record labels, publishers, managers, like everyone in the music industry? Like at the very bottom of the totem pole are artists. They're the creators. They're the people who actually made all of this possible to begin with. And so I do think it's fair to be like, well, the end is near kind of perspective. Probably not the case. But even if you believe that, and just being like, it's happening anyway with the AI tech and developments and all that stuff. If it is going to happen, it is going to happen based on my stuff that I slaved away over. I should at least get paid, right? So that's the argument. On the other side, well, this is just tech advancements. Stop complaining. It's not our problem that we're big companies or whatever, even if we're not. Like we're trying to do something over here. And if it does qualify as fair use, stop complaining about it, right? Because there is okay fair use. It is okay. For example, on this channel, I use this Forbes article. I don't own this article. I didn't write this article, but pursuant to fair use, I can use it because I am trying to educate you guys. That's the conversation. So with the Trump administration, those are some initial concerns. And there's other stuff that I've been reading about, as far as, well, there's, border protection conversations. And well, what about, everyone who's trying to travel? So something that comes up for me as an entertainment attorney all the time is that I have artists who are touring and I have big rock stars, right, who are out of Mexico. And so there's problems and we have to get immigration attorneys involved because there's passport issues and all that kind of thing. So the speculation is for traveling, right, international traveling for goods. Obviously, there's all this talk about tariffs, China, so the equipment that we buy as musicians, as producers, right? So those are additional kinds of points of discussion. But for the Forbes argument, what do you guys think? Is this fear mongering or is this something that we should be concerned about? Leave your comments down below.